Shalom. So, today, on a very special episode of Jacob, I'm going to discuss something very painful, which is the death of the Messiah. Uh, I try to think that I don't shy away from important and timely topics. And I try not to, because um, honestly, I think we live in a world where truth has been thrown to the ground, and it's hard to find people who are speaking from the heart. And just a lot of things uh, militated towards talking about this topic, which is a, it's a difficult topic, but I think it's an important topic, and I think it's an important topic for everybody who is really interested in the same types of things in our little corner of the internet. So we've been joined recently by Rabbi Joe, who um, is an incredibly valuable addition to our community. Um, Recently, John Vervaeke had some discussions with Rabbi Zevi Slavin, um, and honestly, I think he has incredible things to add also to this discussion. Um, and I've been reading, um, along with Pastor Tanner, who's also been reading The Mythmaker by Chaim Maccabee regarding um, the advent of Christianity. Uh, and there is something incredibly important. Um, all these discussions have made us start talking, at least on my um, at least on my Discord server, about people dying, important people dying. Just over the past year, uh, Rabbi Adin Steinsaltz died. He's most famous for his translation of the Talmud to English, which is available online, complete and free. Uh, Many people forget that he was a Chabad Chassid, and he actually wrote a book, My Rebbe, about the Rebbe. We lost Rabbi Lord um, Jonathan Sachs, who is somewhat well known in this corner of the internet, and he was also very close to the Rebbe. I mean, not sure whether he considered himself a chassid, but I mean, he wrote a book which anthologized many of the Rebbe's most important teachings, and that book may, in fact, be the one of, if not the most popular anthology explication of the Rebbe's teachings, certainly outside the Hasidic world. Many people read that book. It's out of print. It's available online for free, but I don't think you can even find Rabbi Jonathan Sacks's. I think it's called Torah Studies. I'm really not sure where I'm gonna go with this. There's a lot to say, and every time I think about it, I start wondering again where are good places to go. Rabbi Pinchas Levin, who I had a conversation with on my channel, he started a series recently, which he think has discontinued during Elul because it's in this month, as we get ready for the coming of the high holidays, it might not be the best time to discuss such topics. But at the same time, something else that we have been discussing is that tears and a broken heart are, in fact, the way which we relate to God. Been discussing that with one particular person who knows she is. And Liyeshuatcha Kiviti Havaya. Genesis 49:18. I wasn't sure where this verse was. I actually assumed that it might have been in Psalms. It's out of place. If you read the verses around it, out of nowhere. In the middle of Jacob's blessings of his children. For your salvation I have waited, Vaya. For your salvation. Liyeshuatcha kiviti havai. The word kiviti, I have waited. Tikva, the national anthem of Israel, Tikva, the hope. And there are psalms which resonate with this. And the Kabbalists, not the simple meaning, I have waited, God, for you to come safe. But I have waited, God, for your salvation. You will be saved. The Talmud says, and all of Judaism agree, that wherever we are exiled, God is with us. Shechina, God's presence, comes into exile with us, suffers with us. And what happens with Messianism is we find a leader, gives us hope. That the salvation is embodied, incarnate, possible. Because it's really, really easy to have a theoretical concept of salvation. It's really easy to talk about salvation. But for it to be real, be incarnate, you have to believe that people can be good. And when you have a human being who brings that into life, who embodies your hope, especially in the darkness. You know, the Rebbe became Rebbe right after World War II. And I don't think it's very real, even to Jews, but certainly to a lot of Gentiles, what it means when a third of the world's Jews disappeared. And they just disappeared. I know people who, as teenagers, came to the United States in the 40s, 30s, 40s, and were writing letters back and forth. And this is before the time of the internet, right? They would write letters back and forth to their family in Europe, and poof, they send letters and they never hear from anybody again. And right after World War II, the Rebbe started giving people hope, real hope. And, you know, with the establishment of the State of Israel in 48, not a lot of people had a lot of hope. They really didn't. It wasn't until the 60s when that hope became real to them. And it became real not just to Jews, it also became very real to a lot of Gentiles. That possibility, salvation, that possibility of the Messiah, that possibility that it wasn't, you die and go to heaven, that sometime in the future something might happen, but a real possibility of hope, a hope that we pay a lot of lip service to. The Yeshuatcha Biti Havai. Hoped, I waited. One of the 13 principles of Jewish faith. But honestly, for a lot of people, it's just not real. So this is a video that was referenced in an article in the Harvard Bulletin. Here, let's take a look. Again, I'm not even sure I'm going to read all of it, but so Joseph Neufeld, I actually spoke to his brother as well. You know, interesting background. As my Rebbe lay dead on the floor of his office, I noticed a small group of men chanting, Yechi Adonenu Moreinu v'Rabbeinu Melech HaMashiach Le'olam Va'ed. Anybody who has spent much time in Chabad circles knows this mantra. It's still something people fight over. Long live the Rebbe. King Messiah forever and only hours earlier, the Rebbe, Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson, pronounced dead by the hospital physician. But for many of his Hasidic followers, still the long-awaited Messiah. It was a hot and muggy Saturday night in June 1994. Now, this is before the Rebbe passed before I became religious. I knew almost nothing of the Rebbe, and I started becoming religious in the years after that, right after that, actually. And maybe that has given me a little bit of distance and the capacity to both, I hope, be a chassid of the Rebbe, and at the same time, it was never a possibility for me because I only came to know him after he had passed. So he was never, I never thought he could still be the Messiah. I do seriously believe that in his generation, he was, and Judaism teaches that in every generation there is somebody ready at any moment to be the Messiah. And I have no doubts that if somebody was going to be the Messiah in 1993, it would have been the Rebbe. And I think if you read any of the biographies, and there are many of them, I think you would understand. It was hope incarnate. And to many of the people who still have hope in him, would I flip a switch and turn that hope off? Chalila v'chas. How could you do that? As a 14-year-old yeshiva student, I joined the vigil standing outside Beth Israel Hospital in Manhattan, hoping and praying that the Rebbe would miraculously return to his followers and community in Crown Heights, Brooklyn. Alas, at 12:30 a.m., our hopes were dashed. Standing among the 1,000 Chabad followers, I saw the stretcher carried out on its way back to Brooklyn. I rushed back to the Rebbe's synagogue, known throughout the world by its address, 770. There, a long line of mourners filed by the Rebbe's office on the first floor to pay their final respects. When I saw the outline of his body laid out on the floor, wrapped in a prayer shawl, I was shocked and bewildered. He was surrounded by 10 burning candles, a small delegation of elderly Hasidim reciting the Book of Psalms. The crowd swept me outside to the street. Still in shock, I joined the dancing Hasidim and chanted along with them. The video. I continued dancing throughout the night until daybreak. By 6 a.m., completely exhausted, I made my way home, collapsed to bed.
Word quickly spread that the rabbi, affectionately called the Rebbe, Rabbi Schneerson, who became the leader in 1951, was the 7th direct descendant of its founder. The Rebbe didn't claim to be the Messiah, but didn't discourage speculation.
The Mashiach is coming. We have to get ready. The whole world is going to be perfect.
Others celebrated the Rebbe. Many believe Schneerson is the biblical Messiah come to earth.
There is no other Rebbe. There is only Rebbe. And he will take us to Jerusalem.
We're supposed to proclaim, long live the king, Mashiach forever, and then Mashiach will be revealed. And we feel that today this is exactly what's going to happen, and the miracles that are going to be experienced today are going to be wondrous and unbelievable.
And you're not expecting a funeral to happen then?
I'm not expecting the actual funeral to happen, no. I mean, there might be a procession, but I don't think that it's actually going to be completed, personally.
Why? What's going to happen instead?
You can watch the rest of similar videos. Later in the day, I stood among the thousands of Hasidim gathered outside the old Montefiore cemetery in Springfield Gardens as the Rebbe was interred next to his father-in-law, Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak Schneerson. It began to dawn on me that the burial would surely put an end to the Rebbe's messiahship, or so I assumed. More than 26 years have passed since the Rebbe's demise. Nevertheless, to this day, most of the Rebbe's followers, known as Chabad Lubavitch Hasidim, continue to believe in his messianic identity. What that means, how can this be? For years leading up to the Rebbe's passing, and with tacit encouragement from the Rebbe himself, which I disagree, I think tacit encouragement, Chabad followers came to believe that the Rebbe was the Messiah. To a large extent, this messianic attribution was connected to the Rebbe's mission of reaching out to every Jew across the globe. Unlike other Orthodox rabbis and Hasidic leaders who primarily concerned themselves with their own flock, the Rebbe saw himself as the leader of world Jewry. To this end, he sent emissaries from the headquarters in Brooklyn to every corner of the globe. And honestly, what Chabad is known for is being at every corner of the globe. There's a joke when the first Jew arrives on the moon or on Mars, he'll be greeted there with a Lubavitcher Chassid asking him, "Have you put on tefillin today?" To date, the Chabad movement has established approximately 4,000 outposts or Chabad houses around the world. I don't know when he wrote this, but probably closer to 5,000 now. No, or maybe even 6,000. No previous Jewish leader had such astounding global ambitions. Not sure about that. As the Rebbe's program of Jewish outreach picked up steam in the early 90s, his followers became ever more convinced that he must be the long-awaited Messiah. The Rebbe had no children and his health was deteriorating rapidly. In 1992, at the age of 90, he suffered a severe stroke, which led to his loss of speech and his ability to walk. In his weakened condition, he would appear for the evening prayer service on a specially built balcony in the back of his synagogue on cue. The moment the curtains parted and the Rebbe came into view, the Hasidim would begin chanting fervently, Yehi, Adonenu Moreinu V'Rabbeinu Melech HaMashiach. The Rebbe's death on June 12, 1994 came as a total shock to all of us. For the Chabad movement, his death simply made no sense. Everyone I knew, family, friends, and teachers, was convinced the Rebbe was the Messiah. As such, how could he have died? Prior to the Rebbe's death, the movement took it for granted that the Messiah had to come from the living, not the dead. Jews knew that Jesus could not be the Messiah because he left the world in an unredeemed state. Likewise, most observers outside of the Chabad movement were convinced that upon the Rebbe's death, his followers would cease to believe that he was the Messiah. But they underestimated the tenacity of his followers' faith in the Rebbe. I would change that word faith with hope. After the initial shock of the Rebbe's passing, the Chabad movement recalibrated itself and came to believe that now, with the Rebbe no longer among the living, the Messiah would have to come from the dead. All that was needed was for the Rebbe to return to his synagogue in Brooklyn and finish the work he began prior to his death. Now, I have to say, first and foremost, you have to remember, Chabad reached out to a lot of people who had no Jewish background and very little Jewish learning, and to a lot of people who had a very strong Jewish background and lots of Jewish. And any movement which has that combination will inevitably have a lot of people speaking over each other, through each other. There's a lot of people who make a lot of claims about the Rebbe and a lot of people who make a lot of claims about Chabad. And I dare say that I have a lot more experience with Chabad than a lot of people who talk about this stuff, right? Recently, even on an episode of Unbelievable, they were talking about Chabad. Lots and lots of people talk about Chabad, and there's a reason for that. Chabad's not going anywhere. Chabad's not going anywhere because the Rebbe kindled a fire that's not going to burn out. The fire that the Rebbe lit is a fire through which Judaism continued through one of the darkest times in our history and continues to keep Judaism alive and to deny that is to be incredibly, incredibly ignorant of Judaism. the people who somehow think that Chabad is going to go away are being silly. Chabad is not going to go, because Chabad is an integral part of what Judaism is. What a lot of people fear is that Chabad is going to split off into some new version of Judaism, the way Christianity did, and the way the Sabbatean movement did, and the way lots of movements. Because this is an old story in Judaism. It's a very old story in Judaism. And honestly, to me, that sounds like people who don't believe in the Messiah. They're not waiting for an actual Messiah. They have no hope in a Messiah. Because if you do have a hope in the Messiah, that hope is going to include not just salvation of Chabad or me, myself, but the world, everyone in the world, everyone. Upon his return, he would gather all the Jews back to the land of Israel and build the third temple in Jerusalem. In effect, this new schema can be considered a Hasidic version of the Second Coming. Until the age of 22, I too managed to shake off the Rebbe's death and continued to believe in his messianic identity. Like so many of my friends, I also had the mantra Yehi Adonenu Morenu V'Rabbeinu Melech HaMashiach emblazoned on my head covering or kippah. And to this day, you will find such people. One of the popular communal songs my friends and I would listen to incessantly proclaimed, he wouldn't teach us falsehoods, he wouldn't tell us lies. If he had said the Messiah was coming, he will be here at last. And this is one of the things which makes me so sad every time I read the Gospels in the Christian Bible, is I see the same mechanism repeating itself. Even though I couldn't see the Rebbe anymore in the flesh, I was convinced that if the Rebbe prophesied the Mashiach was on his way, and I was sure he was the Messiah, it was only a matter of time before he returned. In the meantime, I continued studying the Rebbe's many messianic tinged speeches and talks. And now he's going to talk about his personal home. His father went to Columbia College and Harvard Medical School. I don't want to get into that. I'm not going to get into that. As an inquisitive young scholar, I searched for books that were not included within the yeshiva's restricted and limited collection of Talmudic and rabbinic texts. One day, while perusing the stacks of the Jewish Public Library of Montreal, I discovered the Hebrew language book False Messiahs and Their Opponents, published in Israel by Rabbi Benjamin Solomon Hamburger in 1989. Without explicitly mentioning the Chabad Lubavitch movement, it became apparent to me that the book's real goal was to debunk the Chabad belief in the Rebbe's messiahship. This is 1989. This is before the Rebbe died. The book described the numerous false messiahs who appeared throughout Jewish history, starting with Jesus and culminating with the founder of political Zionism, Theodor Herzl. Its message resonated with me, and I started to have doubts. On the one hand, I wanted to dismiss this book since I knew the author was an opponent of the entire Hasidic movement, and the Hasidic movement, ever since its inception, has had opponents who keep on talking about how the Hasidim are going to lead everyone astray, even though the Hasidic movement is what keeps Judaism alive, including the Chabad sect I belong to. As a proud Hasid, I didn't think I had to take the author too seriously. He was right. On the other hand, the book made a very important observation that every Jewish messianic movement ended in failure. And what breaks my heart is that the people who write these books say such things gleefully. The thought that my belief in the Rebbe's messianic identity might be misguided began to haunt me. The more I wrestled with the question, the more convinced I became that I would have to read the book that was strictly forbidden to Orthodox Jews, the New Testament itself. Perhaps it would help me understand if the Rebbe could still be the Messiah even after his passing. By the time I came to the Book of John, it became apparent to me that the parallels between Chabad's belief in the Rebbe and the faith of the early followers of Jesus were undeniable. Both groups of Jews continued to insist on their leader's messianic identity, following his earthly ministry. This realization frightened me. At the earliest age, I was taught that Christianity was false and Jesus could not be the Jewish Messiah. Over the years, I had argued with Jews for Jesus and tried to prove to them that Jesus was not the Messiah. Now, after reading the Gospels, it dawned on me that my own community was like the early followers of Jesus. We could not let go of our Rebbe. Despite all evidence to the contrary, the disciples of Jesus and my fellow Hasidim both insist that our respective leaders were the long-awaited Messiah, their deaths notwithstanding. This parallel to Christianity made me exceedingly uncomfortable. The belief in the Rebbe's messianic identity, while widespread in the Chabad community, expresses itself in different ways. For the vast majority of the Chabad movement, the Rebbe's burial is not denied. In fact, they visit the Rebbe's gravesite on a regular basis. But his burial is seen as merely temporary. If only we did one more good deed or mitzvah, his return would surely be hastened. Perhaps for this reason, the Chabad movement has not appointed a replacement Rebbe, since the Rebbe will be returning at any minute. No, I don't think that's the reason. I honestly don't think that's the reason there has not been a replacement of the Rebbe is because you're asking for somebody to embody that hope. You can't just decide that somebody embodies your. During the Rebbe's lifetime, every couple would wait for the Rebbe's blessing before getting engaged. If the blessing was not given, it was a sign that the Rebbe disapproved of the match and the engagement would be called off. With the Rebbe no longer among the living, the custom transformed to seeking his approval and blessing at the gravesite. This is accomplished by praying at the gravesite and laying a note on the grave, informing the Rebbe of the couple's intention to marry. With this pilgrimage, the Rebbe's approval is assumed, and I think this is incredibly important. Part of the problem here is that this disembodied hope becomes whatever you want it to become. And suddenly, it becomes even more perfect than a real person who can say no. And this, more than anything, has been my realization with reading the Christian Bible, is the capacity to read and interpret and make Jesus say what you want him to say. His approval and blessing are assumed. A small but vocal minority of the Chabad movement continues to this day to deny the Rebbe passed away at all. For them, the Rebbe is not buried in old Montefiore Cemetery, but is still present in his synagogue at 770 Eastern Parkway. And that's where you'll find a lot of the crazy. The fact that they can't see him in 770 is of no concern. They are sure he is there and ministering, as he had for 40 years before the day that can't be. For them, June 12th, 1994 is not the day the Rebbe passed away from this world. Rather, it's the day of the Rebbe's disappearance. They set up his prayer lectern in the main synagogue, as was customarily done during the Rebbe's visible lifetime. They also clear a path for the now invisible Rebbe to enter and exit the prayer service. They reenact various public functions in which the Rebbe participated. Whether they believe the Rebbe is physically buried in Queens or is still residing in his synagogue in Brooklyn, the majority of Chabad followers continue to maintain the Rebbe is the long-awaited Messiah. Not since the time of Jesus has a committed, traditionally observant Jewish community continued to maintain such a belief. False. Completely and utterly false. Sadly false. And now we get to David Berger. Oy. David Berger is a man. I'm not sure I should say much more. Who has made it his life mission to talk about. He's become the main prosecutor against God. And his career and popularity at Yeshiva University is largely dependent on that. The messianic fervor currently gripping the Chabad movement is outside the pale of normative Orthodox Judaism. Let me just make clear that for David Berger, Hasidism was outside the pale of normative Orthodox Judaism even before that. As such, he believed it should be condemned as heretical, and those professing that belief should not be counted in the traditional prayer quorum. Despite his best efforts, the majority of Orthodox establishment has not moved to accept Berger's call to arms. Except Yeshiva University named him a dean. Apparently he is named him the Dean of Jewish Studies. He is retiring. Over the past 20 years, he has made many predictions, all of which have come to naught, and he still will, I am sure, believes that if not for his staunch opposition, things would be a lot worse. I can tell you, as somebody who I am sure has better grasp of what's going on in the inside of Chabad than David Berger. And honestly, anybody who's studied this stuff realizes that his opposition has in fact made things a lot worse. As opposition to this form of hateful opposition by outsiders has always resulted in making the situation worse. And you can ask any person who is expert on similar movements, similar things. Berger, who is a historian, just doesn't get it. I'm not gonna do that. On the first academic, one of the first academics to tackle this question was Joel Marcus of Duke Divinity School. Marcus concluded, the recent history of the modern Chabad Lubavitcher movement of Hasidic Judaism provides insight into the development of early Christianity. In both movements, successful eschatological prophecies have increased belief in the leader's authority, and there is a mixture of already and not yet elements. Similar genres of literature are used to spread the good news, miracle catenae, and collections of originally independent sayings. Both leaders tacitly accepted the messianic faith of their followers, but were reticent about claiming the messiahship directly. Reticent. People who don't understand Judaism at all. On the one hand, the Rebbe never emphatically stated, I am the Messiah. Duh. Still, the many hints, and I hate these hints, he gave his followers over the years seem to have indicated that he believed in his own messianic identity. I hate these hints. I hate them because they always talk about somebody who was very, very clear in what he was saying. The Rebbe, for 50 years, 40 years, spoke very loudly about what he thought. He didn't give hints. He didn't need to give hints. That was Oy! While for academics, the questions of the Rebbe's messiahship may be interesting material for papers and conferences, for the Chabad movement, the Rebbe's messianic identity is of existential importance. This was starkly evident when I examined the tombstone inscriptions of a number of recently deceased Messianic Chabad members. I noticed that their families engraved the message that the deceased faithfully believed in the Rebbe's Messiah. After the Rebbe's passing, his critics resumed their assault on his messiahship with new zeal. In 2010, and I have to say, it's new zeal, Rabbi Hamburger of Bnei Barak Yisrael reissued his book False Messiahs and Their Opponents in an expanded 703-page edition. This time, unlike his first edition in 1989, he attacks the Chabad belief in the Rebbe's messianic identity directly in his long introduction. He states that even those who may have given Chabad the benefit of the doubt in 1989 will surely now admit the Rebbe never was the Messiah. Reading the new edition confirmed my ever-increasing conviction that the Rebbe was not the Jewish Messiah, while also validating my perception that the first edition was written in order to undermine the belief in the Rebbe's messianic identity. For many in the Chabad movement, Rabbi Hamburger's book won't dissuade them in the slightest of their belief. For one, he is a follower of their longtime antagonist, Rabbi Eliezer Shach, who openly challenged the Rebbe even during his lifetime. Within Chabad, Rabbi Shach is seen as a sort of antichrist. I wouldn't say a sort of antichrist. For challenging the Rebbe on theological and philosophical grounds, he challenged the Rebbe because he was a misnagid. And misnagidim have been opposed to Hasidim since forever. And Shach very much tried to claim that all the fights against Hasidim were over. He only had problems with the Hasidim that still believed in the Torah of the Baal Shem Tov. In any case, Chabad has seldom taken outside views into consideration when deciding what to believe or how to behave. Lahafech, he's absolutely wrong. An attack from the outside will actually reinforce views contrary. Tragically, the coronavirus has hit the Rebbe's community in Brooklyn very hard. At least 100 members of his tight-knit community in Crown Heights passed away in the first wave of the pandemic in early 2020. Among the victims was the Rebbe's personal longtime secretary, Rabbi Lebel Groner. And if you remember, ask me about my story about Rabbi Groner, a revered figure within the Chabad movement. Sadly, a close Chabad friend of mine, Rabbi Yehuda Dukes, age 40, recently lost his 10-month heroic battle with COVID-19. For his wife, 6 children, and the entire Chabad community, Rabbi Dukes' passing was a terrible and painful blow. In reading responses and missives following some of these losses, it has occurred to me that the denial over the Rebbe's death has trickled down to personal tragedies as well. Now the Rebbe is not the only one who is only temporarily missing. He's not talking about. He's trying to talk about, but he's not talking about what the facts are, which is we are losing Alter Hasidim. And part of the discussion I was having with Rabbi Joe was going over all the Alter Hasidim who have been dying. And as I was talking to him, I was finding obituary after obituary. Where does this leave the Chabad movement going forward? Will a time come when the Chabad movement will cease waiting for the Rebbe's return and appoint a new leader? Or will they continue indefinitely to believe in the Rebbe's messianic identity and refrain from ever appointing a new leader? And he's acting like this is the first time this has ever happened. And Breslov, not the first Hasidim. Breslov has been doing this for hundreds of years. If the historical Jewish movement that grew up around the person of Jesus is any indication, not just you, it would seem that once a Jewish leader is perceived to be the Messiah, his followers will find it difficult to give up this belief, despite his death or disappearance. As long as Chabad followers can inspire their progeny to believe in the Rebbe's messiahship, and that's what do these people actually believe? Especially the people who never saw the Rebbe Begashmias, who never physically saw a human being embody that hope. Is their hope even real? I don't think so. I don't think that it is a real messianic hope. And that's the problem with Christianity, and what I keep on telling Paul Vanderklay. Christians have given up. They don't believe in a Messiah anymore. Christianity is no longer Christian. It is not messianic. The word Christ means Messiah. And Christians no longer look forward towards the Messiah. And if Halila, Chabad also loses that hope for a physical, a human Messiah, for an actual Geula, for the actual, and that's the only thing that can possibly happen when you don't have a real human being as your Messiah. As for me, giving up the belief in the Rebbe's messiahship has come at a terrible price. Until the age of 22, I believed heart and soul in the Rebbe's messianic identity. But the more Jewish history I read, the more convinced I became that the Jewish Messiah had to come from the dead. My reading on the Sabbatean movements were instructive, highlighting for me the dangers of the impulse. Once I gave up the belief in the Rebbe's messiahship, I found myself outside the community, if not physically, but then spiritually. I don't see eye to eye with my friends and family. While they eagerly await the Rebbe's return, I am sure that they will never see the Rebbe again. And I have to say that he gave up on the Messiah completely. And that is the spiritual danger. Chabad members are fond of saying, may we merit to see the Rebbe in the flesh, but I know the Rebbe's earthly ministry has ended for all eternity. All eternity? So we're never going to have, we're never going to have a resurrection of the dead? Never? And he talks about how he lost his beliefs and everything that happened to him. And that is a greater sadness. That is more existential and more important than I think a lot of people. And this article, which is a book review of David Berger's book, explains why. Readers of Berger's book cannot fail to gain the impression that belief in the Messiah is a central religious concern of Orthodox Jews today. For the bulk of the Orthodox, however, this is just not so. Certainly in the modern Orthodox camp, which is Berger's home base, messianic expectation exists more as a verbal formula to be repeated than as a live religious option. The non-Orthodox long ago abandoned belief in a personal Messiah. They look instead to a messianic age. The classic formulation of the Maimonidean principle, I believe with complete faith in the coming of the Messiah, Ani ma'amin be'amuna shlema beviat HaMashiach, and even though he may tarry, I await him each day, ba'af al pi sheyitmamea achake lo b'chol yom, hoping that he will come, sheyavo, lacks existential meaning for a majority of Orthodox Jews in the contemporary context. This has everything to do with the impact of secularization, which has weakened the plausibility structure, the phrase is Peter Berger's, I have no idea who Peter, of all faith affirmations, and made the messianic hope seem like a pious dream. Ironically, and this returns us to a point that made above, the same very process of secularization goes a long way toward explaining why the Messianists have run into a stone wall in seeking non-Lubavitch Orthodox converts to their position. Seen from this perspective, the messianic fervor of the Lubavitchers, Messianists and non-Messianists alike, is a welcome indication that the religious juices continue to flow in Orthodox Judaism. This ties in with a crucially important point about the belief in the Messiah made decades ago by the great German philosopher Franz Rosenzweig. The expectation of the coming of the Messiah by which and because of which Judaism lives. By which and because of which Judaism lives. By which and because of which Judaism lives would be empty babble if the appearance again and again of a false Messiah did not render it reality and unreality, illusion and disillusion. The false Messiah is as old as the hope of the true Messiah. He is the changing form of this changeless hope, separates every Jewish generation into those whose faith is strong enough to give themselves up to an illusion, and those whose hope is so strong that they do not allow themselves to be deluded. The former are the better, the latter the stronger. The former bleed as victims on the altar of the eternity of the people. The latter are the priests who perform the service at this altar. And this goes on until the day when all will be reversed, when the belief of the believers will become truth and the hope of the hoping a lie. What Rosenzweig understood and what Berger does not begin to comprehend is the genuine longing for the Messiah is bound to trigger periodic eruptions along the lines of Lubavitcher Messianism. Simply put, this is the price of religious authenticity, far worse than the disruptive presence of the Lubavitcher Messianists on the current Orthodox scene would be their total absence. An Orthodox Judaism in which hope for the Messiah remains permanently fixed at the level of pious affirmation would be nothing more than a religious mummy. Zombie, I would say. Call them crazy, call them heretics. The Lubavitcher Messianists bear powerful, if strange, witness to the continued vitality of Judaism's belief in the Messiah. I was going to read this Teshuvah by Chassid Rebbe himself, actually. Somebody who was very close to the Rebbe. And if you're interested, just ask. לישועתך קיוויתי הבא. The hope of the Messiah must be, should be, can only be in a real and physical incarnate Messiah. And as long as we deny that, as long as we don't have a real person, we're walking zombies. Our faith is nothing. And I mean that. Honestly, nothing. Okay, hopefully somebody found that interesting or somehow enlightening. Let's keep on going. We are in Psalm 119, which is an 8-fold acrostic. And that means that each on an acrostic poem in Hebrew, each verse starts with a subsequent letter of the alphabet. So the first one is Aleph, the second one is Bet. Psalm 119 being 8-fold. So each 8 verses start with a subsequent, and we're on Samech 113. I have I hate the double-minded, but I love your law. NIV, I hate double-minded people, but I love your law. And they say, divided in heart or mind. Chabad, I hate those who harbor iniquitous thoughts, but your Torah I love. So this word se'ifim, so Rashi here gives those who think thoughts of iniquity, like Job 22. Therefore my thoughts answer me, 1 Kings 18:21, between two ideas has se'ifim. So Elijah says, how long will you skip between opinion? when you read Seifim, it concerns the thought, but when you read Seifim, the language refers, Sa'afim. So, Seifim are the thoughts themselves. Sa'afim are those who think. Okay. So, Se'afim saneti, v'toratcha ahavti. So this word Sa'if, when I first Sa'af, when I first read it, I thought of the Aramaic Sayaf, which means sword, and apparently it is related. So Sa'if, which they have here, is a cleft or branch. From Sa'af means to lop off boughs. Se'afa, a bow, a branch. It's related to dividing. I think that's pretty clear. And so those who are divided in their mind, I guess is translating it. I have hated Saneti, V'toratcha ahavti, and your Torah I love. 114. You are my hiding place and my shield. I hope in your word. You are my refuge and my shield. I have put my hope in your word. You are my protection and my shield. I hoped for your word. Sitri umagini ata lidvarecha yachalti. So seter is a secret or hiding place. Magen is a shield. Star of David is called a Magen David. Ata, so the pronoun is being used as the present tense of the verb to be here. Lidvarecha, to your word. Yichalti, so yachal, we've had several times already in the psalm, means to wait or hope. So my hiding place, sitri, or my secret, and my shield, or magini, something like Hagana. So the Israeli Defense Forces are called Tzva Hagana LeIsrael, Tzahal. Right? Lahagan means to defend. You are in your word I hoped or I waited. Depart from me, you evildoers, for I will keep the commandments of my God. Away from me, you evildoers, that I may keep the commands of my God. Go away from me, you evildoers, and I shall keep the commandments of my God. Suru mimeni mereim, ve'etzra mitzvot Elokai. Suru shows up a lot in the Bible. It's the command of get away, flee. Right? Sur merav aseh tov, flee from evil and do good. Mimeni, from me. Mereim. So the morphology here says hefil participle. So people who cause evil, right? So the root is resh ayin ayin, I want to say. Yeah, resh ayin ayin. Yeah, I mean you can look at Vince. How many times? 98 times they're saying, and I think this is just when they're talking about the verb, whereas ra'ah, well, break, pasture, and graze. That shows up another 164 times, and also ra'ah is, don't know why giving two things to the exact same thing. Steak. So a primitive verb properly to spoil, literally by breaking off pieces. Figuratively, to make or be good for nothing. Bad, physically, socially, afflict, associated selves by mistake for raw, break down in pieces or displease, evil, show self-friendly. Wondering why it doesn't have just the root raw, as in on. Well, that's different. Yes. Raw. To break. Ugh. I don't know why it's breaking. Um. Yeah, I don't know why it doesn't just have raw as an evil. Don't know what to tell ya. The Etzra, so we've been having. It's actually made me think a lot, actually, about the Essenes and the Notzrim, because Natsar, we've been having this a lot in this psalm, and there are Messianics who apparently think that the word Notzri actually refers to those who keep the mitzvot, and they refer to Psalm 119. And as I've been reading more about the splits between the Jewish Christians and the Pauline Christians, the more it seems actually possible to me that Notzri may have been a may in fact be related to this Natsar, to watch and the Essene. But ve'etzra mitzvot Elokai, I will keep Shmor, right? The commandments of my God. This is the Shem Elokut, not the Shem Ad. Okay. Verse 116. Uphold me according to your word, that I may live, and do not let me be ashamed of my hope. Sustain me, my God, according to your promise, and I will live. Do not let my hopes be dashed. Support me as your word, and I shall live. And do not put me to shame because of my hope. Samcheni imratcha ve'echyeh ve'al tevisheni misivri. Interesting. So samcheni, samach means to be close. So smicha is rabbinic ordination, and that's because of the leaning, right? Somech means to lean on, to lean, lay, rest, support. Samcheni means support me. Ke'imratecha, so another way of saying your word, right? This with the root aleph mem resh. Ve'echyeh, right? And I will live. That I may live. Va'al, and do not. One of the more rare ways of saying not, opposed to lo, is al. Tevisheni, so bush, bet vav shin is shame. Do not cause me, this is in the Efil, do not cause me to be ashamed. Misivri, sever, sin bet resh. Hope, sabar. Only 2 occurrences. 8 occurrences. Sabru. Rover, but Masoretic sin, north, hence connection with Arabic, shabar, probe, a wound, pry, examine, and probe, and this denominative with from Aramaic loanword, and probable also in connection to sabar with a samech. Appears to only show up in later works: Esther, Ruth, Nehemiah, Isaiah 38, Psalm. Yeah, not very familiar with that word. You can use your concordance. Okay, but so they're translating it as my hope. See, Rashi doesn't. Okay. Next verse 117. Hold up or uphold me, hold me up or uphold me, and I shall be safe, and I shall observe your statutes continually. Uphold me, and I will be delivered. I will always have a regard for your decrees. Sustain me, and I shall be saved, and I shall constantly engage in your statutes. So, Sa'adeni ve'ivasha ve'esh'a bechukecha tamid. So obviously this is this doesn't translate very well. There's the ivasha and ve'esh'a, right? So Sa'adeni, Sa'ad is it's I think it includes like mortar, especially take a meat, strength and support, feed. It is related to mortar. Support a throne. Comfort, establish, hold up, refresh, self, strengthen, and be upholden. I don't know why I thought it is related to mortar. I mean, it's used 12 times in the Bible. First time in Genesis. Pat lechem v'sa'adu. Oh, so as in seudah is a meal. Oh, I wasn't thinking of it like seudah, but yeah, seudah is a meal. Huh. Ve'ivashea, so I will be safe. I mean, obviously the root here is salvation. To deliver. Yasha. And it's used 206 times. And are they saying this is from the same root or a different root? Yeah, oh, they're saying it's a different root. So that's difficult. I would actually be more inclined to say that it is the same root being used differently in two different ways. I mean, sha'a, to gaze. Eek. Not sure what to tell you. So Rashi says, "Ve'esh'a," and I will engage like in Exodus 5:9. In useless things. Another explanation is an explanation of telling and reciting. Deuteronomy 28:37. Honestly, it's very difficult to say. I mean, there is the alliteration here. Sa'adeni ve'ivashea ve'esh'a bechukecha. I mean, you can try the constructor here and different attempts. Don't know what to tell you. I would say that there is definitely, I mean, well, there's the two letter root, shin, ayin, which I think is related to all of these, but this might be beyond. I mean, yeah, a comparison of the roots which have shin and ayin in them in that order could take a very long time, and it's an interesting thing to discuss, but we're not going to do that right now. Bechukecha tamid, in your chukim, right? So we've said chok is how we usually translate it as statutes. There are three categories of mitzvot, of commandments. Chukim are the ones which are not understood readily, as opposed to mishpatim, judgments which are understood, and eduyot, which are things which are signs and which set the Jewish people apart from the other nations. Okay, verse 118. You reject all those who stray from your statutes, for their deceit is falsehood. You reject all who stray from your decrees, for their delusions come to nothing. Okay? You trampled all who stray from your statutes, for their deceit is false. So the trampled, you made them a thing to be trampled on, like Lamentations 1:15. the Lord trampled Salah, all my mighty men. Salita kol shogim mechukecha. Interesting. Shogim, not shonim. He sheker tarmitam. Interesting. Okay, so salita bensilot are roads or paths. So, salah, to make light of, toss aside. I mean, they're also saying Lamentations 1:15 is what Rashi talked about. They're also saying that one, but they're translating that one also as Sila, trampled underfoot. So I don't know why. Light of. I'm not sure why. I mean, it seems clear to me that it is from Sisolel below. Seems to me that it's the same root as Mesila, which is a road. Yeah, I mean, honestly, this is one of the reasons I prefer Benjamin Nesher's concordance to Strong's, because he does not list similar roots together, which I dislike. Okay, Salita kol shogim. So you can say that, well, first of all, this is written b'milui with a vav. They're translating as coming from the root shogeg, which is shin gimel gimel, or they're saying shin gimel hey, to go astray or to err. And we've had a lot of juxtaposition between shogeg and zadon in this in here. And I can understand that, but I also was wondering if this isn't related to shigayon, which is madness. And I could see it that way as well. But shogim mechukecha, right? Either people who stray or people, right? The word meshuga. Yeah, I could see it either way. Chukecha again, your statutes. Spoke again. Ki sheker tarmitam. So tarmitam, so Rama is treachery, right? So Rima, yeah, is deceitfulness. And let's say that, I mean, this comes from the hefil of Rama, of deceitfulness, causing fraud, right? So sheker is the opposite of truth. Honestly, I mean, I don't know how you translate this. Falsehood is their deceit. Yeah, they're deceptive. Don't know what to tell you. Verse 19. 119. You put away or destroy, literally cause to cease, away all the wicked of the earth like a dross. or slag, refuse. Therefore, I love your testimonies. All the wicked of the earth you discard like dross. Therefore, I love your statutes. Chabad. As dross, you cut off all the wicked of the earth. Therefore, I love your testimonies. So, Sigim Ishbata Kol Rish'ei Aretz Lachen Ahavti Edotecha. Okay? So, Sigim times is 8 times in the I mean, draw. So yeah. Agusim Mikasef V'yetzel Tzoref Kel. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. Dross. Siag is a fence. And Liskor is to close. I think that there definitely is there with boundaries, but Sigim Hishbata, so they're saying put away. So this is the Hefil of Lashuv, I guess they're saying. Positive of to turn of Shabbat, cease. Ishbata. Let's try our Shabbat and Hefil. Ishbati. Ata. Yeah, apparently that's how they're doing it. Guessing it shows up in more places. Yishbot. I mean, 71 times. All Hefil. Oh no, actually, apparently it's many times. So, yeah. Yeah, apparently. Kol Rishei Aretz. So, Sigim Hishbata. Like dross. Put away. Kol Rishei Aretz. So, Rashaim. Rasha means evildoer, right? Evil person, a wicked person. And here it's in construct form with the land, Aretz. Eretz. So the evildoers, the wicked of the earth. Lachen, therefore, ahavti edotecha. I loved your testimonies. Edot, right? Comes from the word ed, witness. And it's written bechisaron. You're paying attention to that. As is Rishay, which I kind of would have expected you there. Yeah. My flesh trembles for fear of you, and I am afraid of your judgment. My flesh trembles in fear of you. I stand in awe of your laws. My flesh bristles from fear of you, and I dread your judgment. Samar mipachtecha besari umimishpatecha yareti. So samar, word I know, only shows up twice in the Bible. The other time being in Job. Yeah, let's see what Rashi says. Samar. Like Job 4:15, as a person whose hair stands on end, or rizer in Old French, to bristle. So samar mi pachtecha. So pachad is fear or dread. Besari, my flesh, my basar is flesh. Mishpatecha. So this is the third type of commandments. These are judgments, right? These are the ones which can be understood. Yareti. I am in awe is usually how I do yara, right? Yudrish aleph, because it can mean awesome and awful. So let's keep on going. 121. We are on ayin. I have has the wrong verses. Yeah, we're doing 113 through 140. I have 144. Okay. So now we're on ayin 121. I have done judgment and righteousness. Do not leave me to my oppressors. I have done what is righteous and just. Do not leave me to my oppressors. I performed justice and righteousness. Do not leave me to my oppressors. Asiti mishpat vatzedek bal tanicheni leoshkai. Okay, so asiti, very clear. I have done, right? Do or to make. Mishpat vatzedek. So mishpat comes from the root judge, right? Shafat. And tzedek is usually translated as righteousness. So I have done justice and righteousness. Bal is one of the ways of saying do not, right? Hanicheni, so it's the causative of Noach, right? To rest. Leoshkai, and oshek is oppression, wrong, extortion. Yeah. I think extort. Yeah, that's. Well, oppress 9 times, they're saying. I think eshek is used in rabbinic Hebrew to talk about loans and stuff. That's why the extortion. Well, gazel o ashak. Deception? Yeah, so it's the participle, the people who do eshek. Okay. 122. But be surety, guarantee for your servant for good, Do not let the proud oppress me. Ensure your servant's well-being. Do not let the arrogant oppress me. Be surety for your servant for good. Let the willful sinners not oppress me. So arov is a guarantor. Written without a vav. I mean, yeah. So be surety. It's in the command form. Arov avdecha. So be a guarantor for your servant, your eved, your slave. Letov. For good thing. Al yashkuni zaydim. So again, this word eshek, right? Yeah, I think eshek in rabbinic he takes on this meaning of extortion, and arov, right? Eravon is like a guarantor, is the opposite of that. I do think there's a juxtaposition there, and zaydim, like we said, is oftentimes has been juxtaposed against shogeg, right? To so as zadon is a willful sin, as opposed to a shogeg is an unintentional. So two juxtapositions, I guess. Okay, 123. My eyes fail from seeking your salvation and your righteous word. My eyes fail looking for your salvation, looking for your righteous promise. My eyes pined for your salvation and for the word of your righteousness. Einai kalu liyeshuatecha u'leimrat tzidkecha. So einai, my eyes, plural. Kalu. So again, this is from Vayechulu, right? To finish, to be complete. Right, in Genesis 2:1, Vayechulu hashamayim, right, were complete. So my eyes were complete. Li yeshuatecha, from seeking, okay, your salvation, which we talked about, your salvation. Ul imrat tzidkecha. So imra is, I mean, this is a somewhat strange way of saying a word, like dibra, similar concept. It's but it's in the construct form with tzidkecha, so your righteous word, your word of righteousness, maybe. Yeah. I mean, it's a pretty simple sentence. How you translate it, that's a different question. Deal with your servant according to your mercy and teach me your statutes. Deal with your servant according to your love and teach me your decrees. Deal with your servant according to your kindness and teach me your statutes. Aseh im avdecha kechastecha v'chukecha lamdeni. So aseh is the command form of to do or to make. Im avdecha, with or for your servant or your slave, avdecha kechastecha. No, thank you. According to your chesed, and chesed usually gets translated as loving kindness. V'chukecha lamdeni, and teach me your chukim, right? Statutes, like we said, are the ones that aren't so well understood. Pretty simple stuff. 125. I am your servant. Give me understanding that I may know your testimony. I am your servant. Give me discernment that I may understand your statutes. I am your servant. Enable me to understand, and I shall know your testimonies. So, Avdecha ani, havineni ve'ed'a edotecha. Okay, so the alliteration here isn't translating. Avdecha ani, so the pronoun is being used as the present tense of the verb to. So I am your slave or your servant. Havineni, cause me to understand. Havin, right? So this is the hefil, the causative of bina, to like maven, right? To understand. And this is what we say is related to boneh, to build, to understand one thing from another. Ve'ed'a, and I shall know. So now this is da'at, the more intimate knowledge, more complete knowledge. Edotecha, which are your testimonies, edim, and written bechisaron. Avdecha, ed'a, edotecha, right? It's alliterating in the Hebrew. I don't know how you translate. 126. It is time for you to act, O Lord, for they have regarded or broken your law, regarded your law as void. Oh, this is one of the most famous verses in the entire Bible. It is time for you to act, O Lord. Your law is being broken. A time to do for the Lord. They have made void your Torah. And the Talmud spends a lot of time on this. This is a verse which is used a lot, and I quote it a lot. Et la'asot laHashem lahavaya heferu Toratecha. So, et is a time, and it's in a construct form with la'asot, to do, written bemilui. So it is a time to do, et la'asot, that is implied. Lahavaya, for God, heferu Toratecha. How did they translate the Christian version? It is time for you to act, O Lord. Et la'asot havaya. La havaya. It is a time for the Lord to do. Okay, I can understand that. That is not the traditional Jewish understanding. Heferu Toratecha. The traditional Jewish understanding is it is a time act for the Lord. Heferu Toratecha. They have, so tofer means to unwind, right? To break or frustrate, cast off. Et briti hefar, right? So he has broken my commandment. Genesis 17:14. To annul, disannul. Utterly make void, not. So they have regarded as a void your law. So the understanding of this verse and why it's quoted is actually because heferu can also be understood as tofer, means to actually to sow. I mean, that's not the simple understanding of this verse, but it is how it is used in the Talmud, and this is understood as the injunction which allows the rabbis to temporarily make edicts when there is a special need. Yeah, and I mean, that's a whole discussion. 127. Therefore, I love your commandments more than gold, yes, than fine gold, because I love your commands more than gold, more than pure gold. Because I love your commandments more than gold, even more than fine gold. Al ken ahavti mitzvotecha mizahav umipaz. So, al ken, therefore, ahavti, I love, or I have loved, mitzvotecha, your commandments, mi zahav umipaz. So zahav is the word most people know for gold. Paz is another word for gold, and it's implied, I think, from the various places that it's used, that paz is higher quality gold than zahav. Yeah. What Rashi? Al Ken, because I love your commandments, it is fitting that you teach me at a time of goodwill and what I should do for you that you should accept me. There are many instances of Al Ken that are to be interpreted as because, and he gives some reasons why. Because Al Ken ahavti. Usually Al Ken means therefore. Okay, 128. Therefore, all your precepts concerning all things I consider to be right. I hate every false way. And because I consider all your precepts right, I hate every wrong path. But because I considered all precepts of all things upright, every false way I hated. So, al ken, so again, al ken, kol pikudei kol, interesting, yisharti, kol orach sheker saneti. Okay, so al ken kol pikudei kol. So this kol pikudei kol is interesting. It's one construct chain, all precepts of all. And we've discussed this word pikudei before. I prefer assignments to precepts, but we've been doing precepts all through. But all the precepts of everything. Kol pikudei kol. I don't even know how you translate that. Kol pikudei kol. Yisharti. I have cause to be right. Yashar means straight. Right? So I have, I mean, this is the PL perfect. The intensive. Yeah, I have straightened out, I guess. Kol orach, and again, orach is a way, right? Orchot, a path. Sheker, it's in the construct form. So kol orach sheker. Again, you have a construct chain with three pieces. Sheker meaning false. It's juxtaposed with emet, truth a lot. Saneti, I hate, or I have hated. So yisharti saneti. Okay. Yeah, I mean, clear what all the words mean, but how you translate them, that gets difficult. Okay, 129. We're on pay. Your testimonies are wonderful, therefore my soul keeps them. Your statutes are wonderful, therefore I obey them. Your testimonies are hidden, therefore my soul kept them. Plaot edotecha al ken natsartam nafshi. So pelaot, pele, usually it's the word wonder is often used for it. something that is pelai, that is wondrous. I mean, I understand the word hidden there, right? It's something beyond understanding. So pelaot, and it's written b'milui there. The wonderful things, pelaot, edotecha, of your testimonies, your edot, and both of them are written b'milui. Yeah, and so there's an implied is there, or are. Halaot edotecha. Al ken, therefore, netzartam nafshi. My soul kept them. Right? As for natsar is, like we said before, is a way of saying. So my soul kept 130. The entrance of your words gives light. It gives understanding to the simple. Okay. The unfolding of your words give light. It gives understanding to the simple. The commencement of your words enlightens. You make the simple understand. Petach devarecha ya'ir mevin petayim. Okay, so petach is an opening, right? That's so poteach means to open, or a petach is an opening or an entrance or a door, right? And it here is in construct form with devarecha, your words, ya'ir, and that's the causative of or, right? Light, so it causes light, it brightens. Yeah, the opening of your word. So it's like a window, allows in light. That's kind of the imagery there, I think. Mevin petayim. I was actually expecting machkimat peti from the English. Mevin is the hefil participle. It's actually in the present tense. Of bina, right? Like we said before, that understanding one thing from another, the more feminine understanding. Bina yetera netun l'nashim. And peti is a simple person or a fool. Makimat peti, right, makes the simple wise, makes fools wise. Petayim are fools or simple. Okay, 130. I opened my mouth and panted, for I longed for your commandments. I open my mouth and pant, longing for your commands. I opened my mouth and panted because I yearned for your commandments. Pi pa'arti ve'eshafa lemitzvotecha ya'avti. Interesting. Okay, these are not words that get used a lot. He, my mouth, pa'arti. So, air actually means to empty. Open wide. Gape. It's used 4 times. Twice in Job, once in Psalm, and once in Isaiah. Voracious grief. Yeah, that's what I thought. Open bowels, go to stool. Yeah. Like Baal Peor. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I think it's splitting it up. thought Baal Peor shows up in the Bible. All Oh, yes, it is all the Mishnah and Talmud. I thought it actually showed up in the Bible itself. Apparently, no. So this is for late Hebrew, in Rabbinic Hebrew. I thought it was biblical. Okay. Ve'eshafa, so pant. Huh. Off to gasp, pant after a long 14 times, more times than I thought. It reminds me of, I thought in Shir HaShirim, in Song of Songs. I guess not. Gasp after long. Okay. The Esh'afa. Okay. Pa'arti. I opened up, gating my mouth. The Esh'afa, and panted. Ki lemitzvotecha ya'avti. Ya'av. Another word I don't know. Only shows up once in the entire Bible. Okay. Yeah, don't know what to tell you. The only time it shows up in the entire Bible. So, let me see what Rashi says. No, he's only talking about Eshafa. I guess it's the only time it shows up in the Bible. Don't know what to tell you. Okay, 132. Look upon me and be merciful to me, as your custom is toward those who love your name. Turn to me and have mercy on me, as you always do to those who love your name. Turn to me and favor me as is your custom with those who love your name. Pene elai vechoneni kemishpat l'ohavei shemecha. Interesting. Somebody. Okay. Sorry, I have to respond to that. Okay. So Pene Elai. So Pone. So Panim means face, right? And Lifnot means to turn, right? A Pina is a corner. So Pene is the command form. So turn to me, Pene Elai, turn and look towards me, right? It's the preposition the aleph not ayin. Vechoneni, and be merciful to me, right? Chonen is yeah, be merciful, like chana. It is related, I believe. well, no, that's Noah. Right, Hanan, to beseech, tachanunim. Yeah. I mean, it is used a lot in the all. And there are many related words, I think. Ke mishpat. So literally means like the judgment, but ke mishpat, I think a lot of times in the Bible it's used to mean like is the way that people do things. So bechoneni, right? Ke mishpat le'ohavei shemecha. So as is the custom, as is the way, like as is right for those who love your word, right? So ohave, it's in Bechisaron, but it's the participle, it's the present tense of to love, right? So ohave are people who love, and it's in the construct form with your name, shemecha, to those, as is normal for people who love your name. Okay, 133. Direct my steps by your word, and let no iniquity have dominion over me. Direct my footsteps according to your word, let no sin rule over me. Prepare my steps with your word, and do not allow any iniquity to rule over me. Pa'amai hachen be'imratecha ve'al tashlet bi kol aven. So pa'amai, so pa'amim literally means time, but it also, I mean, yeah, to, well, I am thinking, unless I'm thinking of pa'am with an aleph. Yeah, actually, I think I am thinking. I thought these were related, but no, so yeah, it is time. Zot hapa'am, this time. Yeah, so this once, yeah. So it does literally mean step, but as I understand it, but it means time, as in occurrence, as in iteration. So pa'amai hachen. Yeah, I mean, I understand translating it as my steps, but I would probably translate it less literally as my time, maybe my even my days. Hachen means to prepare. Here, direct to. It's the hefil, I believe, of konen. Yeah. Kivun. It's to turn, like nachon. Ha'amai hachen be'imratecha. By your word, through your word, through your word is how I would probably translate it. Va'al tashlet bi. So, and should not, shilton is to rule over, like sultan, right? Shalet, right? Sholet is to control. Tashlet bi, should not rule over me, should not have dominion over me. Kol aven, all manner, aven is iniquity, and I mean you can use this there, I don't know, but if you 78 times, yeah, and I think that's just in one form of it, yeah. Ayin? No, I don't think. Well, they're saying Ayin as if nothing. That's not what I didn't think there was a relation between oven and Ayin. They seem to think there. Which, honestly, I was last week saying that you should. I was saying that Vav and Yud can be, to some extent, considered minor radicals because they are weak radicals. Okay. Let's keep 34. Redeem me from the oppression of man, that I may keep your precepts. Amen. Redeem me from human oppression, that I may obey your precepts. Redeem me from the oppression of man, and I shall keep your precepts. Pideni me'oshek adam ve'eshmara pikudecha. Interesting. So pideni, podeh means to redeem, right? Pidyon. And it's used quite a bit, many times in the Bible. This is in the command form. Pideni. Redeem me. Times is it used in the 9 times? I actually thought it would be more. Well, Pidyon is probably also there. They probably list Pidyon separately. But Hideni, so redeem me, me'oshek, and this is the same, like, so I think certainly in Rabbinic Hebrew, this word oshek has a monetary relationship to it, but they use it as oppression. Again, we talked about extortion last time because it was talking about a guarantor. I think there is that thread there here. So from the extortion of man is probably how I would translate. And it's in the construct form with Adam, right? Human. And it's written Bechis. Ve'eshmara pikudecha, and I shall keep, right? Shomer pikudecha, assignments, precepts. 135. Okay. Make your face shine. Yes, I do translate the Bible from the Hebrew. Welcome. I believe you're new here. Hello. If you have any requests, please do let me know. And we can do those. I also usually stay a little bit towards the end of my I usually stay a little bit towards the end extra if people have questions or stuff. And the streams on a regular basis, well, right now we're going through Psalm 119. I also answer questions if people have questions, but mostly these are videos going through helping people look at the translations of the Bible and engage the Hebrew directly. If you have questions, please ask. And you're welcome on our Discord server where you can discuss things further. Welcome. Okay. Where were we? Did 134. We're on 135. Okay. Make your face shine upon your servant and teach me your statutes. I do have a YouTube channel, same name, and you can see all the backlog. There's a lot more there than there is on the Twitch stream. And I'm live streaming right now on both. It should be available. Here, I will put thing to my YouTube channel for. Here is the same live stream. on YouTube for you. So whichever you prefer. Okay. Where were we? 135. Make your face shine up on your servant and teach me your statutes. Make your face shine on your servant and teach me your decrees. Cause your countenance to shine upon your servant and teach me your statutes. Hanecha ha'er be'avdecha ve'lamdeni et chukecha. We've had a lot of lamdeni chukechas. Panecha ha'er. So this actually reminds me of the priestly blessing. Yar panecha, right? Your face shall shine on, right? Hey, Jesse. I welcome whichever you prefer. Okay. So ha'er is the hefil causative of or light, right? So panecha, your face or your countenance, ha'er, cause, so it's the command form of light. Be'avdecha, upon your servant or your slave. Ve'lamdeni et chukecha, teach me your statutes. Chukecha are the mitzvot which are more difficult to understand. 136. Rivers of water run down from my eyes because men do not keep your law. Streams of tears flow from my eyes, for your law is not obeyed. Rivulets of water ran down from my eyes because they did not keep your Torah. Halge mayim yardu einai al lo shamru toratecha. So palge mayim, actually I believe it's in Psalm 1 or 2 that has palge mayim in it. Psalm 1, yeah. Shatul al palge mayim, right? Streams of water. So peleg means to channel, like a canal, I guess they're saying. But palge mayim are streams, rivulets, however you want to do it. Reminded me of Psalm 1:3, right? Shatul, like a tree on palge mayim, streams of water. Yeah, so however you want to do that. Peleg means to cut up into parts. Certainly in modern Hebrew. Oh, right, and dor haflaga, right? That's how in Hebrew is we talk about the generation of the Tower of Babel, right? Niflaga was divided. Haaretz. Okay. So palge mayim, so streams of water, right? Rivulets of water. Yardu, Yared, like Jordan, right? Yarden. So Yardu came down. Einai. Palge mayim yardu einai. Oh. I would have kind of expected Yaridu einai, but came down from my eye. There's no from here. Al lo. So al is the preposition with the ayin, upon, because of. Lo shamru toratecha, because they did not keep your Torah. Yeah. Caused me to cry, I guess, heavily. Okay. 137. We're on Sadi. Okay. 137. Righteous are you, O Lord, and upright are your judgments. You are righteous, Lord, and your laws are right. You are righteous, O Lord, and your judgments are upright. Okay. Tzaddik ata havaya vayashar mishpatecha. So tzaddik comes from the root tzedek, right? Righteousness. So you are righteous. The pronoun is being used as the present tense of the verb to be. So tzaddik ata, tzadok ata, right, means why do you translate the Bible, but isn't the Bible already translated? The problem with the translations, in my opinion, is it's impossible to really get the full flavor of the Hebrew. When you actually engage with the Hebrew itself, the original Hebrew, you get a much richer flavor and a much better understanding. When you're looking at a translation, you're looking at how somebody understood the Word of God, as opposed to the Word of God yourself. And I think engaging directly helps you to remove that sort of filter. Some people, it's a crude analogy, but I think it's kind of right. It's like kissing your bride through a veil. When you look at the translation, looking at the Hebrew yourself itself helps you, I believe, to engage with God more directly and to understand what God is trying to convey to us much more purely. Okay. So tzedek ata havaya, right? So the tetragrammaton. So you are righteous. You are a tzaddik, right? Tetragrammaton. Veyashar mishpatecha. So your judgments, and those are the category of commandments that are easy to understand. Yashar literally means straight, right? It is. They are. Straight, upright, I guess. Yeah. 138. Your testimonies which you have commanded are righteous and very faithful. The statutes you have laid down are righteous, they are fully trustworthy. Your commanded your testimonies which are righteousness, and they are exceedingly faithful. Tzivita tzedek edotecha ve'emuna me'od. So, tzivita, right, you have commanded, right? Tzedek edotecha. So, how exactly you want to translate these words? I mean, so tzedek, again, is from righteousness. So you commanded tzedek edotecha. It's in the construct form, right? So construct form in Hebrew is when you have two or more terms which form one construct chain, meaning they're teaching you a new concept. So tzedek edotecha, the righteousness of your testimony. Edot is written bechisaron. By the way, Jesse, if you're new to this, I have a lot of introductory videos on my YouTube channel. My recommendation is to start at least with the Jonah playlist, which has a very, very quick overview of Hebrew. If you have questions, anything, please let me know. And you are also welcome on the Discord server where you can discuss things with people and me directly. Okay, so tzedek edotecha be'emunah me'od. So the word emunah, same root as amen, right? Very faithful. And they are very faithful. Be'emunah me'od. I mean, the words are clear. How you would translate them, and you can look at the translations. Tzivita tzedek evud edatecha, you commanded be'emunah me'od. Honestly, I wouldn't even know how to translate this. Okay, 139. My zeal has consumed me, or put an end to me, because my enemies have forgotten your words. My zeal wears me out, for my enemies ignore your words. My zeal incenses me, for my adversaries have forgotten your words. So, Simtatni kinati ki shachu devarecha tsarai. Okay, so I believe tzemet is it's related to sparks. Maybe no. Silence, to exterminate, and in poetry, hyperbolic, compress. Oh, pressed, simt. Nitzmatu. 15 times. Yeah, I guess, I mean, you can use your to extirpate, cut off, destroy, vanish. You can use your concordance here. Yeah, I would say use your concordance here. Simtatni. Caused me to be consumed. Kinati, so my zeal, right? Kenai, the zealots were Kanaim, right? The word is used regarding Pinchas in I believe it was in Deuteronomy. Yeah, kinati, my zeal, my kina, my zeal, or I mean kina, I do think is related to jealousy. Yeah, zeal or jealousy, ardor. Ki shakhu devarecha tsarai. So shachach means to forget, used a lot in the Bible. Devarecha, your words, tsarai. So tzorer, tsar, same root as Egypt, Mitzrayim, right? Is to like besiege, or tzorarai, right? Enemies, oppressors, right? So tsarai, have forgotten your word. Yeah, I mean, how you want to translate that? 140. Your word is very pure or refined, therefore your servant loves it. Your promises have been thoroughly tested, and your servant loves them. Your word is very pure, and your servant loves it. Tzerufa imratecha me'od ve'avdecha aheva. So tzaruf means like smelted. So I think kesef tzrufa used in the Bible itself. Yeah, smelt, refine. Soref is a goldsmith. Yeah. Kesef Tzaruf, Psalm 12:6, 12:6. Yeah, smelting. So Tzerufa, so it's been smelted, it's been purified. Imratecha, your words. Me'od, very much. Ba'avdecha aheva, and your servant or your slave loves it, right? So imra is in the feminine. Aheva, right? That's why there's a dagesh in the hey, right? To it's referring to a feminine thing, and so that's why the hey is aspirated, and that's why there's a dagesh there. So aheva, loves it or loves her, right? The imra. Okay, 141. I am small and despised, yet I do not forget your precepts. Though I am lowly and despised, I do not forget your precepts. I am young and despised, I have not forgotten your precepts. Tza'ir anochi venivzeh, pikudecha lo shachachti. Okay, interesting. So Tza'ir literally means young. Little, insignificant, or young. Oh, is it related to Tsar? Okay. I mean, Tsar also means pain. Hatzeira, right? So Genesis 19:31, the younger one. I believe that's talking about Leah. Yeah, but Tomar Habechira, the older one. Was it Leah or was it Rachel? Rachel was Hatzeira. This is talking about Rachel. Oh no, this is talking about Lot. Eek, yuck. Okay, you can look at that there. Yeah, that was another. Okay. So Anochi is the more is considered the more formal way of saying I. The pronoun is being used as a stand-in for the present tense of the verb to be, which doesn't exist in the Hebrew. So I am young or I am small, I guess. I would usually translate it as young. Venivzeh, so bizayon, right? It says Esav vayevoz Esav et habechora, right? Esav scorned his birthright, so that's the same bizayon there. So and despised, it's in the nifal, it's in the passive. So I am young and despised, scorned. Pikudecha lo shachachti. Your there again, we've been using precepts. I like assignment better. Lo shachachti, I have not forgotten. 142. Your righteousness is an everlasting righteousness, and your law is truth. Your righteousness is everlasting, and your law is true. Your righteousness is perpetual righteousness, and your Torah is true. Tzidkatcha tzedek le'olam ve'toratcha emet. So this is actually a very commonly quoted verse. So tzidkatcha tzedek. So yeah, your righteousness is righteous. So that repetition in the Hebrew doesn't translate very well into the English. Tzidkatcha tzedek le'olam, right? So your righteousness is righteous always, le'olam, forever. Ve'toratecha emet, and your law or your Torah is true, or is truth. 143. Trouble and anguish have overtaken me, or found me, yet your commandments are my delights. Trouble and distress have come upon me, but your commandments give me delight. Distress and anguish have overtaken me. Your commandments are my occupation. Tsar umatzok matzauni mitzvotecha sha'ashuai. Okay, so tsar, like we said before, is that besieging, right? Like Egypt, right? Sorer, right? Umatzok, that word. It's used 6 times in the Bible. First time, it's used 3 times in Deuteronomy 28, and it's also in conjunction with Matzor. Yeah, so honestly, if you want to understand what this means, I would look at Deuteronomy 28. It's used in 53, 55, and 57. So tsar umatzok. It's used with tsar, well, matzor and matzok all 3 times there in Deuteronomy. Anguish. Straits. So, yeah, I mean, tsar, tsuk, these are related words. Okay. Mitzauni. So, okay, so you hear the alliteration in the... So Hebrew poetry alliterates. So tsar umatzok matzauni, right? So trouble and anguish have found me. Matzauni have found me. Mitzvotecha sha'ashuai. So you hear all the tzaddiks there, right? Tzaddik, 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 and this is actually in the stanzas that start with tzaddik, right? So this is the acrostics, and we're in the tzaddiks now. Taru matzok matzauni mitzvotecha sha'ashuai. And sha'ashuim we've been always translating as delights. So are my delights. Okay, last verse for the night. The righteousness of your testimonies is everlasting. Give me understanding, and I shall live. Your statutes are always righteous. Give me understanding that I may live. Your righteousness of your testimonies is eternal. Enable me to understand, and I shall live. Tzedek edotecha le'olam havineni ve'echyeh. So we've had these words several times tonight. Tzedek edotecha, right? The righteousness, it's in the construct form with edotecha. And here, edotecha is in the written b'milui. It wasn't the previous times, I believe. Le'olam is forever. The is implied. So the righteousness of your testimonies, right? Those are the mitzvot, which are a sign which set Israel apart from the other nations. Le'olam. Havineni. So again, this is the understanding one thing from another, like maven, right? In English, a maven is somebody who understands. Havineni ve'echyeh, cause me to understand, right? It's in the Hefil. Ve'echyeh, and I shall. Okay. If there are any questions or about this or anything else, please feel free to ask. I think I'm gonna hang around for another 20 minutes or so. As always, let's finish up with Sefania 3:9. Ki az epoch el amim safa berura likro chulam b'shem havaya le'ovdo shchem echad. So therefore I shall turn over or restore, and this is a very interesting word. I highly recommend looking it up in the concordance. El amim, to the nations, safa berura, a pure language, a winnowed language. Likro chulam, so that they may all call Hashem Havaya in the name of the Tetragrammaton, Le'ovdo, to serve him, Shem Echad, with one shoulder, literally, together. If anybody has any questions, Jesse or I Love Jesus Christ 777, please, you're welcome. Please, if you have any questions or anything, feel free to ask. I'm gonna hang around for a little bit, until 9 o'clock my time, at least, in case anybody has questions or anything. Otherwise, I bid you a good night. Ah, yes. So Rabbi Groner was Rabbi Groner was the Rebbe's secretary for many, many years. And he died recently. And one time he was in Los Angeles speaking. Now, I don't know if Rabbi Groner actually knew how we take the word exotic dancer these days. But what he said was that there was an exotic dancer. And by that he may have just meant somebody who was like a ballet dancer or something. I have no idea. But apparently, this exotic dancer had a private audience with the Rebbe. So he came to see the Rebbe, and normally what you do is you write a letter, right? You prepare a letter, and when you have a private audience, you read it, basically. So you have what you're going to say to him, prepared. And this exotic dancer apparently showed up with a boombox. I mean, this must have been in the 80s, maybe even in the 70s. Already by the 80s, it was almost impossible to get a private audience. And he showed up with a boombox, said to the Rebbe that he didn't know what to say, and he was a dancer, and so he wanted to dance for the Rebbe. And so he puts the boombox down and he turns on the music. And Rabbi Groner, and you have to realize Rabbi Groner, Hasidic man, probably has never seen a professional dancer in his life other than like Hasidic dancers, right? Those aren't exact, Fiddler on the Roof type thing, right? He said he puts on this wild music. That's what Rabbi Groner said. Puts on this wild music and starts doing these wild dances, right? And the Rebbe just tried to clap along. And yeah, that's what the Rebbe was like. So that's my story about Rabbi Groner and the Rebbe. I don't know. It always touched me. Quite welcome. Yeah, I told this story to somebody actually on Discord, and he knew Rabbi Groner's grandson. So he told his grandson the story, and he had never heard that story before. Yeah, Rabbi Groner died. I think it was. He was the Rebbe's, I guess, chief secretary. You would say. The Rebbe had like 18, 20 secretaries. Yeah, he died April 7th,